Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a new product unboxing on the channel. The Edge of the Earth Investigator Expansion for Arkham Horror the card game just dropped today, and we're going to unbox it on the channel. This is the first expansion under Fantasy Flight's new release model, where they give you everything for the entire campaign in one shot. The campaign expansion, where you get the actual campaign, is due out early next year, and I'll unbox that separately. The Investigator Expansion, hence the name, has everything that you need for the investigators within the new expansion, along with the player cards for them and new player cards that come with the campaign to introduce them to the campaign, or to introduce them to the game. But for now, let's go ahead and get this open and we'll see what all is inside. So I've actually been looking forward to this expansion because a lot of it is because it's new stuff, but there's one investigator in particular that I've been wanting to try out for a while now. Sorry, I didn't mean to jar the camera there. So as we look back on the box art that we have here, we see you can see the 5 investigators who are in this expansion. So we have, and we'll take a closer look at them when we actually get their cards open. We have Daniela Reyes, the mechanic. We have Monterey Jack, the explorer, and one of my friend's favorites. We have Bob Jenkins, another one of that same friend's favorites. Norman Withers, who's actually been in the game for a while as a novella release. And then the one I'm excited to try out, Lily Chen, I forget what she's actually called, the martial artist probably. But let's go ahead and take a look and see what all's inside. So we have all the player cards here. I wonder if they're going to have sorted that out by class. We'll find out soon enough when we actually get everything open. So as we pull out this messy thing, right, there's the Investigator Expansion explaining everything that comes with it, including some of the new keywords. We have more of the cards, and then we have the Investigator minis in here. So, okay, cool. Let me go ahead and I'll sort everything out off camera, and then I'll come back with everything sorted all ready to go. Okay, so here's everything that came in the Edge of the Earth Investigator Expansion, except for the guide to it, which I've put off to the side. So we've got all of our class cards here. We've got our Survivor cards, our Mystic cards, Guardian, Seeker, Rogue, a whole stack of multi-class cards, and our neutral cards, which also have new weaknesses in them. So with that, now that we've got everything out, let's go ahead and go through everything that's in here, and we'll start off with the Mystic cards. Here are our Mystic cards all laid out. We'll start off first by going through the new Investigator in Mystic, and we'll introduce you to Lily Chen. She is indeed the martial artist. 3 will, 2 lore, 4 combat, 3 agility. Chosen Warden as her keywords. You begin the game with each discipline in your deck in play, unbroken side face up, and we'll look more at that in a minute. Her Elder Sign effect, +2. After this test ends, flip a broken discipline you control to its unbroken side. I have been preparing to confront this evil for my entire life. My focus must be absolute. 7 health, 7 sanity. And we'll flip it over, find a deck size of 30 cards. Deck building options. Mystic cards level 0. Guardian cards level 0 to 5. Neutral cards level 0 to 5. Up to 5 other Guardian level 0 cards. Deck building requirements. Don't count toward deck size. 1 Burden of Destiny for each discipline asset, see below. 1 random basic weakness. Deck building restrictions. She can't take any firearm assets. Additional requirements. At deck creation, choose a discipline asset to add to your deck. It is considered part of your deck building requirements. For every 15 experience you've earned in total, you may choose and add a different discipline asset to your deck. Chen Li speaks rarely. When she does, her words are measured and wise. After a lifetime of disciplined training, Every gesture is graceful, uncluttered by hesitation. The monks who raised her said that she was born for a special purpose, to face a great evil. Now they believe that evil is at hand, and she's the only one who can stop it. Heavy stuff. So, looking at the disciplines, looking here, we actually have a discipline for each stat, for each basic space stat in the game. So, Lily Chen only permanent. You get +1 of each stat. You can take 1 direct damage for an action on the will discipline. You can take 1 direct damage to heal 3 horror, or take 1 horror to heal 3 damage, then flip it over. And it flips to, after the round ends, if you took no damage or horror this round, flip this asset over to its unbroken side. On the lore discipline, we get, if you have fewer than 5 cards in hand, draw until you have 5, then flip. After this round ends, if your hand did not have 2 or more cards in it at any point this round, flip this asset over to its unbroken side. Or flip this discipline. Well, discipline asset basically are the same thing. On the combat asset or discipline, you get +5 as an action. You get +5 skill value for the next skill test you perform this turn. After the skill test ends, flip this asset over. This action does not provoke attacks of opportunity. And this one flips into, after the round ends, if you performed no skill tests this round, flip this asset over to its unbroken side. Then on the agility asset, or on the agility discipline, as an action, 1 at a time, take up to 3 different fight or evade actions, flip this asset over. This action does not provoke attacks of opportunity, presumably because you'll be taking different fight or evade actions, which under normal circumstances wouldn't trigger attacks of opportunity. Then it flips into, after the round ends, if no enemies were at the same location as you at any point this round, flip this asset to its unbroken side. But Lily's disciplines also come with the burden of destiny. As a revelation, you must either choose one. Flip a discipline asset you control to its broken side. It can't flip back this round. And take 1 damage and 1 horror. Flavor text on here. How can I save them if I can't even save myself? Heavy stuff from Lily. Now, looking into the actual player cards we have, we start off with another permanent card. Down the Rabbit Hole. Permanent. Limit 1 per deck. Purchase at deck creation. So when you're building your deck initially is when you'd pick this card up. After each scenario of a campaign, reduce the experience cost of the first 2 cards you upgrade before the next scenario by 1. Increase the experience cost for you to purchase new cards by 1. So the way that will work is, say you have a Shriveling level 0 in your deck. The upgrade to level 3 would actually cost 2 experience, whereas adding something new, like say Twilla Catherine Pierce, would actually is it Price or Pierce? I always just call her Twilla, but anyway. The experience to add like a Twilla to your deck is +1, so in that case it would be 4 experience to add to the deck. That might be a little bit perilous to take, especially if you think you're going to need to spend an upgrade in the campaign to potentially counter a weakness. So you have to be very careful with that. Then we get then for the next level 0 card, we have a new asset. We have the Dragon Pole. You have 1 additional arcane slot. As an action, fight. You get +1 will for this attack for each of your arcane slots that is filled. If at least 2 of your arcane slots are filled, this attack deals +1 damage, and it's the 2-hand slot. Next up, we have an event, Meditative Trance. 2 cost, and I forgot to mention on the Dragon Pole, 3 cost to play, and you get a combat on commit. Now, coming back to Meditative Trance. 2 cost to play, you get a will and a lore on commit. For each of your arcane slots that is filled, either heal 1 damage or 1 horror. You let your mind drift into cold, meaningless oblivion. the emptiness feels like home. So good, I could see that being very good for Akachi, who really wants to stack a lot of charge assets to counteract, in her arcane slot, to counteract her character weakness. Then as we start to move into level 1 cards, so now as you recall, we're actually out of Lily's deck building restrictions. We have Close the Circle, level 1. 2 cost to play, you get a combat and an agility on commit. Uses: 1 charge for each class among cards you control, including this one. As a fast action, spend 1 charge and exhaust Close the Circle. Take a basic action. For each skill test performed during that action, you may use your will instead of the skill indicated for that action, and it takes up an arcane slot. So I'll talk more about this with when I bring the multi-class cards in, but what they mean by class is, up here, that being a mystic card, that would count as 1 class. On the multi-class cards, it'll count each individual class on there. So we've had multi-class cards before, but this expansion really goes crazy with them just because of the deck building restriction. I'll talk more about that when I get into some of the other investigators. Now, something else that looks like at a glance it's going to be good for Akachi is Winds of Power level 1. 2 cost to play, you get 2 will icons on commit. Place 2 charges on an asset you control. As a reaction, after you draw Winds of Power during your turn, play it. May Oya's faith or breath guide us all. Again, something that is really good with Akachi. This looks like the Akachi expansion so far, even though Lily's the featured mystic. Our last level 1 card we have is Foresight. 0 cost to play, 2 lore on commit. Fast. Play when an investigator in your action at your location would draw a card from their deck or from the encounter deck. Name a card. If the drawn card is the named card, that investigator may either choose 1, cancel that card's effect and discard it, or immediately play that card at -2 cost. This might actually be good for Gloria, come to think of it, because what she can do with the encounter deck is she can actually manipulate the encounter deck. Then if she names the card that she knows is coming, she can cancel it and discard it. Actually, Diana could probably use this too. I'd look for it in Gloria more, just because Gloria can actually manipulate the encounter deck. Then our last level 1 card is Occult Theory. It's a skill. While Occult Theory is in your hand or committed to a test, it gains will icons equal to your lore, and lore icons equal to your will. When knowledge is lacking, belief must suffice. So you can commit this to either lore or will tests, and you get the other icon of the 2. Next up, we have our lone 2 experience mystic card, Parallel Fates. It's an event, 0 cost to play, will and a question mark on commit. Look at the top 6 cards of an investigator's deck or the encounter deck. You may either return them to the top of that deck in any order, or shuffle them into that deck. If you looked at an investigator's deck, that investigator may draw 1 card. If I said that I could tell you where you were going to die, would you want to know? I don't know if I would want to know if they were going to tell me when I would die. But more heavy stuff. God, this expansion is full of heavy stuff for Lily. Next up, we get into our 3 experience cards. We start off with Astronomical Atlas level 3. 3 cost to play, will and 2 lore on commit. As an action, exhaust Astronomical Atlas. Look at the top card of your deck. If it's not a weakness, attach it face down to Astronomical Atlas. Max 5 cards attached. As an action, commit a card attached to Astronomical Atlas to an eligible skill test. If that test succeeds, add that card to your hand instead of discarding it. Limit once per test, and it takes up 1 hand slot. So again, if you're able to manipulate your deck, that can be very powerful to have. Next up, we find Healing Words level 3. 2 cost to play, 2 will icons on commit, 4 charges to use. As an action, spend 1 charge, heal 2 damage from among investigators at your location. You don't necessarily trust the occult words, but you have no other choice. Well, in this game, there's a lot that you don't trust, but you don't really have much of a choice with it. Next up, we have Grounded. 0 cost to play, 2 question mark icons on commit. Fast, limit 1 composure in play. You get +1 skill value during skill tests on spell cards. Non-direct damage or horror must be assigned to grounded before it can be assigned to your investigator card. As an action, during a skill test on a spell card, spend 1 resource. You get +1 skill value for this test, and it's got 2 and 2 on soak. Something that you can really use for a lot of spellcasters. Last up, we have True Magic. 5 experience, True Magic, reworking reality. 2 will and a question mark on commit. Uses 1 charge. Replenish this charge at the start of each round. You may resolve abilities on spell assets in your hand by revealing them from your hand. Treat True Magic as if it were the revealed asset. To pay its costs, spend charges, performance effect, etc. Takes up a hand and an arcane slot. That could be very handy for investigators who, again, have a lot of spell assets but have their arcane slots filled, so this is a way to let them play it. But anyway, that will do it for the Mystic cards. Next up, let's take a look at the Guardian cards. Alright, here are the Guardian cards that came out in Edge of the Earth. And we'll start off by taking a look at our Guardian for this expansion. Take a look at Daniela Reyes, the Mechanic. 4 will, 1 lore, 5 combat, 2 agility. The Entrepreneur. Reaction. After an enemy attacks you, accept an attack of opportunity you provoked. Even if that attack was cancelled, either deal 1 damage to that enemy or automatically evade it. Elder Sign +1. If you were attacked by an enemy this round, you automatically succeed instead. Relax, tough guy. I'll handle this. You stand over there and look pretty. 8 health and 6 sanity. Hey now. Okay. Deck size of 30 once again. Deck building options, Guardian cards level 0, Survivor cards level 1 to 5, Neutral cards level 0 to 5, up to 5 other Survivor cards level 0. Deck building requirements don't count toward deck size. Mechanics Wrench, Mob Goons, 1 random basic weakness. Daniela always figured she had a good life. She had a loving, boisterous family. She had a steady job that used her brains and her hands. She had enough money to spend on fast cars, pretty girls, and her motorcycle, Gabriel. Then her brother, Ramon, got caught up in some trouble. Her mother warned her to be careful, that darkness lay ahead. Daniela set a glass of water behind the door for her mother's sake, to catch evil spirits, just as she'd been taught as a child. When Daniela awoke to find it shattered, she was determined to find out what happened and fix it, like she always did. Okay, so you're probably noticing a theme here where investigators start off as one class, but then they turn into another class. Norman actually had that same restriction when he came out in the novella, and we'll see that when we get to Seeker cards in a few minutes. But anyway, let's take a look at her basic cards. So we'll take a look first at the Mechanics Wrench. 2 cost to play, 2 combat, and a question mark on commit. Daniela Reyes deck only. As an action, exhaust Mechanics Wrench. Choose an enemy at your location. That enemy attacks you. As an action, fight. Use this ability only against an enemy that has attacked you since the end of your last turn. You get +1 combat for this attack and deal +1 damage for this attack. And then her personal weakness, and then I'm going to change the lighting here, so I'll give the camera a break. Mob Goons. 3s across the board. Hunter. Prey, Daniela Reyes only. This enemy's attacks cannot be cancelled. Damage and horror dealt by this enemy's attack is considered as direct. Debt is a family affair. 1 and 1 on soak, on attack. Now, I'm going to change the lighting here, so I'll be right back. Alright, I think that'll be a lot better on the lighting situation. So now let's look at the actual player cards that came with this expansion. First up, we'll take a look at her geared up. So permanent, limit 1 per deck, another when you purchase a deck creation. Forced, when your first turn of the game begins, Play any number of item assets from your hand, reducing the cost of each by 1. During this turn, you have 3 fewer actions to take. So, if you're using an item-heavy build, that can be a way to help you get your deck state, get your board state jump started. Next up, we're going to have a couple of events. First up, we're going to look at toe-to-toe. 0 cost to play, combat and agility on commit. Fight. This attack deals +1 damage and is automatically successful. As an additional cost to perform this attack, the chosen enemy makes an attack against you. Sometimes, the only way out is through. That could be handy for investigators that want to take damage. Like, I think Mark wants to take damage to a point. I've actually never played Mark Harrigan before, but might be getting some good toys here. And the last event we have is Get Behind Me. 0 cost to play, will, and combat on commit. Fast, play during any open player window. Until the end of the phase, whenever an enemy would attack another investigator at your location, it attacks you instead, then engages you. Cancel 1 horror dealt by each attack made in this way. So any investigators that might want to be engaged with enemies like Zoe, for instance, that can be handy for them as well. Now we start getting into the cards that actually cost experience. First up, we have Gang Up. 3 costs to play, will, and combat on commit. Fight. For each different class among cards you control, you get +1 combat and deal +1 damage for this attack. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. That would actually probably be good for Nathaniel Cho, who likes to deal with with events, especially spirit events. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Here comes another event that might be good for the Nathaniel, but also Rita Young might like this one. Sweeping Kick. 1 cost to play, combat, and agility on commit. Fight. Add your agility value to your skill value for this attack. This attack deals +1 damage. If you succeed, automatically evade the attacked enemy. Very good, Lee. Now, again. Always looking for good ways to do cheap attacks, and Rita using agility would be a very good thing. Last up, we have Defensive Stance. It's 1 experience to put in the deck. While Defensive Stance is in your hand or committed to a skill test, gains combat icons equal to your agility and agility equal to your combat. You slide your feet into position, take a deep breath, and center yourself. They are many, but you are one. Kind of reminds me of Reverse Ermac if you've ever played Mortal Kombat. We are many, you are but one. Something like that anyway. I know that was a horrendous voice impression of, I think that was MK9 Ermac actually, his intro. But anyway, coming back to Arkham, now we start to get into the 2-cost cards. First up, we have Butterfly Swords. 3 costs to play, 2 experience. Combat and agility on commit. As an action, fight. You get +1 combat for this attack. After this attack, you may exhaust Butterfly Swords to fight again, adding your agility to your skill value for that attack. That attack deals +1 damage. In a practiced grip, they are an extension of the empty hand. Takes both hand slots. So anybody who likes using a lot of weapons and has a decently high agility will probably like Butterfly Swords. Then we get an upgraded Dodge. Dodge level 2. Will and 2 agility on commit. Fast. Play when an enemy attacks an investigator at your location. Cancel that attack, then test agility 1. If you succeed, deal 1 damage to that enemy. Then we get into the Composure for Guardian and the first of our 3-cost cards. We have Combat Training. 0 cost to play, 2 combat, 2 agility on commit. Fast, limit 1 composure in play. You get +1 agility and +1 combat. Non-direct damage or horror, yada yada yada. And spend 1 resource, you get +1 or +1 combat or agility for the skill test. 3 health and 1 sanity on soak. Next we get On the Hunt level 3. So 0 cost to play, will, lore, and combat on commit. Fast, play when you would draw an encounter card during the Mythos phase. Instead, search the encounter deck for an enemy. Spawn it engaged with you instead of its normal spawn location. Attach On the Hunt to it and shuffle the encounter deck. Reaction: when you defeat attached enemy, gain 3 resources. So again, anybody that wants to do a lot of fighting, this will be very handy for that. So when you would draw an encounter card, so you can only use that to basically manipulate one card out. Next up, we have the Fang of Turthraha. I'd probably butcher the pronunciation of that. 3 cost to play, 4 experience to add to the deck. Once again, 2 combat, 2 agility on commit. Fight. Choose an enemy at any revealed location as the target for this attack. Before resolving this attack, you may move to that enemy's location. Add your agility to your combat for this attack. This attack deals +3 damage. The Fangs of Tindalos reach any prey. Ooh. Again, that would be really good for any investigator who can take it and has got decently high in both stats. Actually, that seems to be tailor-made for Lily, but no surprise there, really. Then last up in Guardian, we have upgraded Butterfly Swords. These are level 5. So 3 cost to play, combat, agility, and question mark on commit. As an action, fight. You get +2 combat for this attack. After that attack, you may fight again, adding your agility to your skill value for that attack. If both attacks are successful, you may exhaust Butterfly Swords to have the second attack deal +1 damage. I don't know how much I like that, actually, because you're essentially only doing 3 damage. Well, you're doing 3 damage for one action, which is very good, but it's conditional on both attacks being successful. Though when you're adding your agility to your combat, if you put this in the right deck, you're probably getting a guaranteed 3 damage for one action. But anyway, that will do it for the Guardian cards. Next up, let's take a look at the Rogue cards. Next, we'll take a look at the Rogue cards that came out in Edge of the Earth. And once again, we'll start off with the new Investigator. Monterey Jack, the Archaeologist. 1 will, 4 lore, 2 combat, 5 agility. Reaction: at the end of your turn, if you started this round 1 location away from your current location, either gain 1 resource or draw 1 card. If you started this round 2 or more locations away, do both instead. Elder Sign, +1. If you started this location round 1 or more locations away from your current location, gain 1 resource or draw 1 card. 8 health, 6 sanity. And actually, I'm going to move my other light over. Much better. Okay. Alright. Oh yeah, much better. Flip it over. Deck size of 30. Deck building options: Rogue level 0, Seeker 1 to 5, Neutral 0 to 5, up to 5 other Seekers 0. Deck building requirements: Trusty Bullwhip, Buried Secrets, 1 random basic weakness. Young Jack traveled the world with his father's archaeological expeditions. Now a globe-trotting treasure hunter and an accomplished archaeologist in his own right, Monterey follows in his father's footsteps, securing the treasures of ancient civilizations and lost cultures. But after discovering a silver pendant with a familiar symbol on it, Monterey must explore his own past. Years ago, his father was found murdered with this very same sigil carved in his forehead. The image has haunted Monterey's dreams ever since, but he's getting close. He won't stop until he solves the mystery of his father's murder, no matter what it takes. And taking a look at his signature cards, we find first the Trusty Bullwhip. 2 cost to play, 2 agility, and a question mark on commit. Fast, Monterey Jack deck only. As an action, fight. This attack uses agility instead of combat. If this attack succeeds, you may exhaust Trusty Bullwhip to either automatically evade the attacked enemy or deal +1 damage for this attack, and it takes up the hand slot. But of course, we saw Buried Secrets. Put Buried Secrets into play in your threat area. If your location can be investigated, you can't move except by scenario card effects. Action: investigate. If you succeed, instead of discovering clues, discard buried secrets. If you fail, you may take 2 horror to shuffle it into your deck, which with a sanity of 6 we might need to be careful of. But anyway, now let's get into the rogue cards. So we start off with the permanent in this, and for rogue, Underworld Support. Limit 1 per deck. Once again, purchase at deck creation. Your deck can't include more than 1 copy of each non-weakness, non-signature card by title. Reduce your deck size by 5. So, for example, if you had, say, Shriveling as a card, you wouldn't be able to... If you had Shriveling level 0 and Shriveling level 3, you'd only be able to include 1 of those. So that's something to be aware of. Next up, we got our first event. Scout Ahead. 1 cost to play, 2 agility on commit. Move up to 3 times. Enemies don't engage you during this movement. A viewless aura repelled me and bade me retreat from antique and sinister secrets that no man should see and no man had ever dared to see. H.P. Lovecraft, The Nameless City. Next up, we get to play Blackjack, apparently. With 21 or bust. 2 cost to play, 1 at a time, and combat and agility on commit. 1 at a time, reveal random tokens from the Chaos Bag until you choose to stop. Treat each bad symbol as a 5, except for the tentacle. The tentacle is a 10, and the Elder Sign is either 1 or 11. If the combined value of those tokens, ignoring plus or minus, is 18, gain 4 resources. 19, gain 5. 20, gain 6. 21, gain 9 resources. So you have to be very careful of that. You could potentially net a return of 7 resources, or waste 2 resources doing exactly nothing. Then we start getting to the level 1 cards. We have Counter Espionage. 2 cost to play, 2 will on commit. Fast, play when you draw a non-weakness Treachery. Cancel that card's revelation effect and draw the top card of the encounter deck. Reaction, when you play Counter Espionage, increase its cost by 2. Change the encounter deck to your deck. Reaction, when you play Counter Espionage, increase its cost by 2. Change you to any investigator. So a very expensive cancel, but Rogue is usually known for having a lot of resources, so they'd be able to pay that pretty easily. Next up, we have Cheat the System, 0 cost to play. Combat or lore and agility on commit. Fast, play during any open player window. Gain 1 resource for each different class among cards you control. If you weren't supposed to do it, it wouldn't be legal. Something to play with all the multi-class cards. Next up, we have an Untimely Transaction, 0 cost to play. Reveal an item asset in your hand. Another investigator at your location may play that asset as if it were in their hand. If they do, draw 1 card and gain resources equal to that asset's printed cost. Really? You're going to haggle with me now? So you could use this card potentially to cheat something powerful into play. For instance, Carolyn specifically has a deck building restriction that says she can't take any weapons above level 1. But if somebody else happens to have a powerful item that Carolyn could use, she would be able to play that as if it were in their hand. So that would be a way to get around that restriction. Last up for the level 1 cards, we have Savant. Question mark to play, or question mark on commit. Savant gains question mark cards equal to your lowest skill other than the skill being tested. 50% back, 100%, 50% luck, 100% skill. Okay, so something you can use if you need to bump a skill. If you need to bump a skill up by something. Next up, we have, for 2 experience, we have the Red Clock, broken but reliable. 2 cost to play. Question mark on commit. Exceptional, uses 0 charges. After your turn begins, either place 1 charge here or take all charges here as resources. Then, if it is exactly one charge, you get +1 skill value, +3 skill value for your next skill test. 2 charges, you may move up to 2 times. 3 charges, you may take an additional action this turn. So something else you can charge up for potentially more actions. Next up in level 2 land, we have Money Talks. 0 cost to play, question mark on commit. Fast play when an investigator at any location initiates a skill test. Instead of the skill type indicated for this test, will, lore, combat, or agility, this is a resource skill test. The performing investigator's base skill for this test is equal to half the resources in your resource pool, rounded down. Draw 1 card. So it's basically like a way for you to make for you to help with the test. So rogues, once again, with a lot of resources, they can bump that up very quickly. Next up, we have Black Market. 1 cost to play, 2 experience to add to the deck. Fast, play at the start of the investigation phase. 1 at a time, reveal the card from the top of any investigator's decks until exactly 5 cards have been revealed. Set those cards aside out of play. While set aside, any investigator may play any of those cards as if they were in their hand. At the start of the next investigation phase, shuffle each of those cards still set aside into its owner's deck. So I presume you wouldn't be able to commit those cards. It says play them. So I'm assuming committing them would be out of bounds for that. Then we get into the rogue composure. We have Moxie. 3 experience for the deck, 0 cost to play, 2 will, 2 agility on commit. Fast, limit 1 composure in play. You get +1 will and +1 agility. Non-direct damage must be assigned to Moxie before it can be assigned to your investigator card. As an action, spend 1 resource. You get 1 agility or 1 will for this test. 3 health, 1 sanity on soak. Last up, we have the Black Fan. Symbol of power. 3 cost to play, 3 experience. 1 lore, 1 agility, 1 question mark. It's exceptional though, so it's actually going to cost 6 resources. While you have 10 plus resources, you get 1 health, +1 health and +1 sanity. 15 or more resources, you may take 1 additional action during your turn. 20 or more resources, you get +1 to each of your skills. And those effects do stack. So if you have 20, you get all 3. Anyway, that will do it for the rogue cards. Next, let's take a look at the seeker cards. Here are the seeker cards we have that came with the expansion. First, we'll take a look at our new-ish investigator, because our investigator is Norman Withers. 4 will, 5 lore, 2 combat, 1 agility. Play with the top card of your deck revealed. Once per round, you may play the top card of your deck as if it were in your hand at -1 resource cost. Forced, after a weakness is revealed while on top of your deck, draw it. Elder Sign +X. You may swap the top card of your deck with a card in your hand. X is the resource cost of the top card of your deck. 6 health, 8 sanity. As we remember from before with the novella, deck size of 30, Seeker cards 0, Mystic 1 to 5, Neutral 0 to 5, up to 5 other Mystic 0 cards. Deck building requirements that don't count toward deck size. Leave Daybone, the Harbinger, 1 random basic weakness. The stars hold many secrets, and Norman was never one to ignore a mystery. So when 6 stars vanished from the sky, he simply couldn't let it go. Not even when his colleagues told him that he was just imagining things. It took him years, and the near death of his career, but he eventually found his answers in an ancient tome. It described the stars, and the sequence in which they would vanish, down to the very date and time. It was a sign, the book said, of the end of everything. It was the harbinger of a great beast that would tear asunder all that man had wrought. Norman isn't sure what he can do to stop the beast from destroying the world, but if the stars hold the answer, then he will find it. Of course, let's take a look at those signature cards. We have the... So first up, we'll take a look at the Leave Daybone. Hyperborean Grimoire. 2 cost to play, 2 will, and a question mark on commit. As an action, exhaust Leave Daybone. Swap the top card of your deck with a card in your hand. As a fast action, exhaust it. Commit the top card of your deck to an eligible skill test performed by an investigator at your location. But the weakness, the Harbinger, Revelation, place this card on top of your deck. While the Harbinger is revealed and on top of your deck, cards in your deck cannot be searched, drawn, or manipulated in any way except by the below ability. 2 actions to discard the Harbinger. This ability may be activated while the Harbinger is on top of your deck as if it were in your threat area. So we get to play around to the top of Norman's deck, but this plays havoc with that ability as well. So now with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the Seeker cards that came in the expansion. So first up, we'll go to the permanent card from Seeker, Forced Learning. Once again, permanent, limit 1 per deck, purchase at deck creation. Increase your deck size by 15. During each upkeep phase, instead of drawing 1 card, draw 2 cards and discard 1 of them. Now, of course, as we remember from before, we can't use this to voluntarily discard weaknesses. So it might not be that useful. Next, we come into a new ally. Jeremiah Kirby, Arctic Archaeologist. You get +1 will, or +1 lore. As a reaction, after he enters play, choose even or odd. Reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. Draw each card with a cost that matches the chosen option. Shuffle the remaining cards into your deck. Now, you do need to be careful with this card, because if you name even or, because whichever one you name, if you have a weakness in your deck that has a cost associated with it, and you hit that weakness on this, you would have to draw it in that case. You wouldn't be able to skip drawing over it. So next up, we come to what looks to be a new thing we can do with the campaign log. An archive of conduits unidentified. Unidentified. 2 cost to play, and by the way, Jeremiah Kirby was a 4 cost to play with a lore on commit. Anyway, coming back to this, 2 cost to play, ? On commit. So limit 1 per deck. As an additional cost to play this asset, place 1 resource on 4 different locations as ley lines. Reaction, after you successfully investigate a location with a ley line, exhaust this asset. Move that ley line onto this asset. Then, if there are 4 ley lines on it, discard it, take its ley lines as resources, and record in your campaign log that you have identified the gateway. Takes up a hand slot. Next up, last up for level 0, we get another event. Written in the Stars, 1 cost to play, ? On commit. Fast, play only during your turn. Discard the top card of your deck. If that card is a weakness, shuffle it back into your deck. Otherwise, for the remainder of your turn, while that card is in your discard pile, commit it to each eligible skill test you perform. So something you could use with Norman to screw around further with the top card of your deck. So we'll go ahead and get those off to the side. Then we start getting into the level 1 cards, and we start off with Hiking Boots, level 1. 2 cost to play, agility on commit. Limit 1 footwear per investigator, so footwear is starting to come back into the game. You get +1 agility. Reaction, after the last clue is discovered from your location, exhaust Hiking Boots. Move to a connecting location with at least 1 clue or to a connecting unrevealed location. So another way we can kind of keep things moving along. Next up, we find Join the Caravan, level 1. 5 cost to play, lore and agility on commit, and also Hiking Boots had an agility on commit. Fast, play only during your turn. Reduce the cost of this card by 1 for each different class among cards you control. Move to any revealed location. The true journey is the one we take in our minds. So another way to help you move around, as long as you have a lot of multi-class cards out. Our next card is a skill, Survey the Area, level 1. While Survey the Area is in your hand or committed to a skill test, gains lore equal to your agility and agility equal to your lore. They won't believe you if you don't capture it on film. Hell, they probably still won't believe you. Some of the stuff that has been seen in this game, I'd be surprised if anybody believes us about anything in Arkham. Next up, we'll take a look at another level 2 card, Medical Text level 2. 2 cost to play, lore and combat on commit. As an action, choose an investigator at your location and test lore 2. If you succeed, heal 1 damage from that investigator, 2 damage instead if you succeed by 2 or more. If you fail, you must either discard exhaust medical text or deal 1 damage to that investigator. And it takes a hand slot. So something else for Daisy to upgrade is another tome. Last up for level 2, we find Unearth the Ancients. 0 cost to play, 2 lore and an agility on commit. Investigate. Choose up to 2 seeker assets in your hand. The difficulty of this skill test is equal to the combined cost of the chosen assets. If you succeed, put the chosen assets into play 1 at a time. For each relic asset put into play by this ability, draw 1 card. So it's an upgraded version of Unearth the Ancients, which can help you cheat assets into play. Next up, we have a level 3 card, this Composure for Seeker, Scientific Theory level 3. 0 cost to play, 2 lore, 2 combat on commit. Fast limit 1 composure in play. You get +1 lore and +1 combat. Non-direct damage and horror must be assigned to Scientific Theory before it can be assigned to your Investigator card. As an action, spend 1 resource. You get +1 lore or +1 combat for this skill test. 1 health, 3 sanity on soak. Next up, we have 4 archives. So first up, we have the Archive of Conduits. 4 cost to play. This one is Gateway to Tyndalos. 4 cost to play, 2 combat, and a question mark on commit. Researched. Uses 4 ley lines, limit 1 per deck. As an action, move 1 ley line from this asset to a non-elite enemy. As an action, choose an investigator and an enemy with a ley line at a revealed location. That investigator moves to that location. You may remove the ley line to deal 1 damage to that enemy. Next archive we have Gateway to Acheron. 2 lore and a question mark on commit. Once again, researched 4 ley lines and move 1 ley line to a revealed location. This one is, as an action, move 1 ley line from this asset to a revealed location. As an action, choose an enemy and a revealed location with a ley line. That investigator moves to that location. You may remove the ley line to have them take an investigate action. Ooh, that one could actually be handy with Ursula, potentially. So you move her to that location, then you would actually get to take 2 investigate actions, because you take the action here, and then you would take the investigate action from Ursula as well. And like the Gateway to Tyndalos, which I didn't mention, that also takes an arcane slot. So our next archive is Archive of Conduits, Gateway to Aldebaran. 4 cost to play, 2 agility, 1 question mark on commit. Once again, we're moving a ley line from this asset to a non-elite enemy. As an action, choose an investigator engaged with an enemy and a ley line. That investigator disengages from that enemy and moves to a connecting location. You may remove the ley line to automatically evade that enemy. This action does not provoke attacks of opportunity. So something that we can get away from if we badly need to. Last up, we have Archive of Conduits, Gateway to Paradise. Once again, 4 costs to play, 2 will, question mark on commit. This time we're moving a ley line from this asset to an investigator. As an action, we can choose an investigator with a ley line. That investigator draws 1 card and heals 1 damage or horror. You may remove the ley line to have them instead draw 2 cards and heal 2 damage or 2 horror. Also takes up the arcane slot. So that's actually a ley line that Carolyn could conceivably take because of the heals horror clause on there. Last up for Seeker cards, we have Prophesia Profana, Atlas of the Unknowable, level 5. 4 costs to play, 2 question marks on commit. While you are not at the locus, you get +1 will, or +1 lore, +1 agility, and you may ignore attacks of opportunity. As a reaction, after Prophesia Profana enters play, choose a revealed location. That location is the locus until Prophesia Profana leaves play. I am butchering the pronunciation on that like crazy. As an action, move any investigator to the locus. It takes up a hand slot. So that's something you could use to teleport an investigator to any location, to whatever location you choose as the locus. But anyway, that will do it for the Seeker cards. Next up, we'll take a look at the Survivor cards. Here we are with the Survivor cards next. We'll start off as usual by taking a look at at our Survivor Investigator. As we find Bob Jenkins, the Salesman. 2 will, 4 lore, 3 combat, and agility. At any time, an investigator at your location may reveal to you the item assets in their hand. You may take an additional action during your turn, which can only be used to play an item asset from the hand of an investigator at your location under their control. Both investigators may spend resources to pay its cost. As an Elder Sign, +1 for each item asset you control. 6 health, 8 sanity. Let me flip it over to find a deck size of 30. Deck building options: Survivor 0, Rogue 1 to 5, Neutral 0 to 5, up to 5 other Rogues 0. Deck building requirements that don't count toward deck size: Shrewd Dealings, Greed, and 1 random basic weakness. According to Bob, the secret to success as a salesman is persistence. People just need to be told what it is that they want, repeatedly. Recently, Bob came into possession of a handful of cursed golden coins, and he hopes the same persistence he so famously advocates will help him to uncover their origin and purpose. If he plays his cards right, maybe this will be his big score. Maybe he'll finally be able to retire and buy that boat he's had his eye on and spend the rest of his days fishing in a tropical paradise. Or maybe Bob will finally come to see all that glitters is not gold. Alright, so we will take a look at his signature cards next. First up, we find his Shrewd Dealings. 2 cost to play, 2 lore, and a wild card on commit. Reduce the cost of each item asset you play by 1. Reaction: when you play an item asset, play it under the control of any investigator at your location. You say end of the world. I hear business opportunity. Apparently Bob is a little psychotic when it comes to that, but of course, we need to be careful that we don't be overcome by Bob's greed. So, Revelation, take 1 horror. If you have 10 or fewer resources, take 1 additional horror. 5 or fewer resources, take another additional horror. 0 resources, take 1 additional horror. Worshipped by its own cult, one might say. So, yeah, we definitely need to be careful with that to keep Bob's resources high. Now with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the Survivor cards that came with this expansion. So we'll start off first with the permanent asset for Survivor, Short Supply. Permanent, yada yada yada. Forced. When your first turn of the game begins, discard the top 10 cards of your deck. You can only pray that it's enough. So trying to get rid of weaknesses could be a handy thing, but that's something you need to be very careful with, because you also run the risk of getting rid of good cards. Next up, we'll take a look at Schaffner's Catalog. 2 costs to play, 1 lore on commit. Uses: 5 secrets. If Schaffner's Catalog has no secrets, discard it. You may spend secrets on Schaffner's Catalog as resources to pay for item assets played by any investigator at your location. So once again, continuing with the theme of dumping resources into other investigators' assets to help get them into play. Next up, we'll take a look at Bandages. 2 costs to play, agility on commit. Uses: 3 supplies. If Bandages has no supplies, discard it. After an investigator or ally asset at your location takes 1 or more damage, spend 1 supply. Heal 1 damage from that card. So something else that'll help us with healing damage, which will always be a good thing. Then we have the event, which is his last level 0 card, Jury Rig. 0 cost to play, lore and combat on commit. Uses: 3 durability. Attached to an item asset controlled by an investigator at your location. As an action, during a skill test on attached asset, spend 1 durability. You get +2 skill value for this test. If it ain't broke, make it better. Very handy thing to consider on that front. Next up, we'll start to jump into the level 1 cards, and here we have 4 of those. First up, we have a Bangle of Jinxes. Uses 1 charge, 2 cost to play, will on commit. Uses 1 charge. As an action, spend a charge. You get +2 skill value for this test, limit once per test. Then a reaction after an enemy attacks you, place 1 charge on Bangle of Jinxes, and it takes up the accessory slot. So something you might use on an investigator that gets attacked a lot. And next we have Burn After Reading level 1. 1 cost to play, wildcard on commit. Exile a level 0 to 5 card in your hand. Discover 2 clues at your location. If the exiled card was level 2 or higher, remove 1 doom from the current agenda. Exile Burn After Reading. So this is the first time we're seeing the exile keyword, even though it's been in the game for a while. So the exile keyword means you remove it from the game, but you have to rebuy it in between scenarios. So you might see, you've seen remove from the game on some other cards in, whether it's on my channel or other campaigns, they say remove from the game, which means it comes back to your deck at the end of the campaign, at the end of the scenario. Whereas exile, you would have to buy it again. But anyway, strength. Next card we have is a skill, Strength in Numbers level 1, question mark on commit, and then gains a question mark icon for each different class among cards you control. Watch my back, will ya? In fact, watch my front too. Moderately helpful there. Then last up for level 1, we have Dauntless Spirit level 1. 1 experience to play. While Dauntless Spirit is in your hand or committed to a skill test, it gains will icons equal to your combat and combat icons equal to your will. This stage just keeps getting better and better. That's how I feel sometimes, honestly. But anyway, now we go into the level 2 cards. And first up, actually the only level 2 card we have here, Blood Will Have Blood. Level 2, 1 cost to play, will and combat on commit, fast, play after an enemy attacks you, max 1 per attack. Damage or horror from this attack can't be assigned to ally assets. For each point of damage and or horror you took from this attack, draw 1 card. So a risky play potentially, but it can help you get deep into your deck if you use it carefully. Now we'll go into the level 3 cards. We have a Fire Extinguisher, level 3. 2 cost to play, 2 agility on commit. As an action, fight. You get +1 combat and deal +1 damage for this attack. As an action, discard Fire Extinguisher to evade. Automatically evade all enemies engaged with you. You may exile Fire Extinguisher instead of discarding it to discard each non-elite enemy evaded by this effect, and it takes up a hand slot. So now we'll move into the Composure for Seeker, Plucky, level 3. 0 cost to play, 2 will and 2 lore on commit. Fast, limit 1 composure, yada yada yada. You get +1 will and +1 lore. Non-direct damage and horror, yada yada yada. As an action, spend a resource. You get +1 will and deal, or +1 lore for this skill test. 1 health, 3 sanity on soak. So it's basically another resource dump. Last card we have here is Fend Off. 2 cost to play. It's an event. 2 agility on commit. Fast. Play when a non-elite enemy spawns at your location. That enemy attacks you. Then automatically evade that enemy and attach Fend Off to it. Attached enemy cannot ready. Ooh. That could actually be handy in Forgotten Age when you've got the Harbinger of Volusia that comes out. So you can use that to basically lock it down. But anyway, that will do it for the Survivor cards. Next up, we'll go into the neutral cards. We also have new neutral cards that came with this expansion. So let's take a look first at the neutral permanent. In the thick of it. Permanent, limit 1 per deck, yada yada yada. When you purchase In the Thick of It, suffer 2 total physical and or mental trauma. then earn 3 experience. Normally, I tend to shy away from these assets that have you take trauma coming into a campaign, just because it tends to cause you problems over the course of the campaign when you have further trauma come in. So I probably will shy away from this, but we'll have to see. The earning 3 experience in exchange for starting trauma could be good, but again, I would, at least in my playstyle, I would tend to shy away from this. But anyway, next up we have Heavy Furs. 2 cost to play, combat on commit. Reaction. After you reveal a non-tentacle symbol on a chaos token during a skill test you're performing, deal 1 damage to Heavy Furs, cancel that chaos token and return it to the bag. Reveal a new chaos token, 2 health, no sanity on soak, and it takes up the body slot. So you have to be careful with that when it comes to the cancel ability, because something with, like, Diana would put that right under her. But anyway, next we'll take a look at another ally, the Sled Dog. 3 cost to play this. Question or combat on commit. You may include up to 4 copies of Sled Dog in your deck. Up to 2 Sled Dogs take up a single ally slot. As an action, exhaust X Sled Dogs, move X times. And also as an action, exhaust X Sled Dogs to fight. You get plus X for combat for this attack. Instead of its standard damage, this attack deals X damage, where once again X is the number of Sled Dogs you exhaust. 2 health and 2 sanity per Sled Dog on soak. Then we have the Rod of Animalism, which this one's unique, so you need to be careful with a group. You have 2 costs to play, and this is level 1, Will on commit. You have 2 additional ally slots, which can only be used to hold creature assets. As a reaction, when you play a creature asset during your turn, reduce that asset's cost by 1, and it takes up the accessory slot. Our last neutral good card is a Call for Backup level 2. 1 cost to play, question mark on commit. 1 at a time in any order. If you control a Guardian card, you may move to a connecting location. Or no, that's a Rogue card. Guardian card, deal 1 damage to an enemy at your location. What is that? Looks like Seeker, discover 1 clue at your location. Mystic, heal 1 horror from any card. Survivor card, heal 1 damage from any card. So this is a card that would really reward you for having many different classes in play on multi-class cards. But of course, with every new expansion, we also have some new weaknesses to add to the game. So we'll start off with an arm injury. So Revelation, put it into play in your threat area. Arm injury can be healed as if it were a single point of damage on you. If it's healed, discarded. Forced, after you take a fight or activate action, you cannot take any of those types of activations for the remainder of the turn. So I presume the way this is worded, it would cut off fight and activate actions separately. So something to keep an eye on there. Similarly, we also have a leg injury. Once again, goes into play in your threat area and can be healed as if it were a single point of damage. And if it's healed, discarded. This one cuts off move, resign, or evade actions, which you wouldn't care about taking resign actions after you've left the scenario. So, yeah, that one might not be as devastating. But of course, we also have weaknesses that deal with the sanity aspect. So we have Panic, which that goes into play in your threat area. This can be healed as if it were a single point of horror, and it cuts off play, engage, or resource actions. So, then the last weakness we have is Stupor. Once again, goes into, as I drop Stupor. Apparently my weakness is clumsiness. But anyway, put it into play in your threat area. Can be healed as if it were a single point of horror on you. Then this one cuts off parlay, draw, or investigate actions. So just need to be mindful of healing on those. But anyway, that will do it for the neutral cards. This expansion also provided us with a mess of multi-class cards, and we'll go ahead and take a look at those. This expansion really has a lot of multi-class cards. We'll go through all of them, but I do want to mention with the multi-class cards. So generally the way these will work with deck building restrictions is if a card has two different classes on it, it will generally interact with the less restrictive of the deck building restrictions. So for example, a Mystic would be able to take this with no problem despite it also having the Survivor class. Because it's got the Mystic, because it's a Mystic card, so most Mystics can take Mystic cards, so again, it'll fall into the less restrictive of the deck building restrictions. But anyway, we've got cards for every level all the way up through level 5. So we'll start off the multi-class cards by looking at level 0. These are all the multi-class cards at level 0 that came with the expansion. So we might as well just work from right to left. So we'll take a look first at the Talisman of Protection. So it's so this one's Mystic Survivor. 2 cost to play, will on commit. Fast, play only during your turn. Play Talisman of Protection under the control of any investigator at your location. As a fast action, as a reaction, when you are assigned damage and/or horror that would defeat you, discard Talisman of Protection, cancel up to 2 of that damage and/or horror, and it takes up the arcane slot. So it's basically like it's defeat protection is what it is. So something that you'd be using more defensively. Next up, we have a Rogue Survivor event called Hit Me. 1 cost to play, agility on commit, fast. Play after you reveal a cast token during a skill test. Reveal an additional cast token, switching its minus to a plus. If that token is a skull token, you automatically fail. So this is basically a gambler card. Next up, we have a Rogue Mystic spell called Ethereal Slip, which is a 2 cost to play. Will and agility on commit. Choose a non-elite enemy at a revealed location up to 2 connections away. Swap places with that enemy. Now, for my next trick. So another way to help you move around the board a little more quickly. Then we have a Seeker Survivor ally in Professor William Webb. Finder of Hidden Connections. 3 cost to play, lore on commit. Uses 3 secrets. Reaction, when you successfully investigate, exhaust Professor William Webb and spend 1 secret. Instead of discovering a clue at your location, either choose an item card in your discard pile and add it to your hand, or discover a clue at a connecting location. 1 health, 2 sanity on soak. Next up, we have a Seeker Rogue item, the Pocket Telescope. 2 resources to play, 2 lore on commit. As a fast action, exhaust Pocket Telescope. Look at the revealed side of a connecting unrevealed location. As an actual action, investigate. Investigate a revealed connecting location as if you were there. Takes up a hand slot. So potentially something that can help us investigate without even having to leave our location. Then we have a Guardian Survivor weapon, a Sledgehammer. So 3 cost to play, combat and commit. As an action, fight. You get -1 combat and deal +1 damage for this attack. Or 2 actions, fight. You get +2 combat and deal +2 damage for this attack. 20 pounds of Steel Vengeance. And takes up both hand slots. This might actually be better than I would say better than the baseball bat, but the 2 action costs would make me a little bit nervous. Last up, we have a Guardian Seeker ally, the Medical Student. 2 cost to play, will on commit. As a reaction, after Medical Student enters play, heal 1 damage and 1 horror from an investigator or ally asset at your location. Can I get course credit for this? 1 health, 1 sanity on soak, and takes the ally slot. So definitely some stuff that looks somewhat interesting at a 0 cost. But anyway, that will do it for 0 cost multi-class cards. Now let's take a look at multi-class level 1. Here are our level 1 multi-class cards. We'll start off with a Mystic Survivor spell, Earthly Serenity. 2 cost to play, will on commit. Uses 4 charges. Action, test will 1. For each point you succeed by, you may spend 1 charge to heal 1 damage or 1 horror from an investigator at your location. If you succeed by 0, lose 1 resource. And it takes up an arcane slot. Then we have a rogue mystic spell, Blur. 2 cost to play, agility on commit. Uses 3 charges. If Blur has charges remaining, evade. For this evasion attempt, you may use will instead of agility and you get +1 skill value. If you succeed, spend 1 charge and you may take an additional action this turn. But if you succeed by 0, take 1 damage. And it takes the arcane slot. So another potentially risky way to evade, but you're probably going to be up by a lot trying to evade anyway. So something to keep an eye on. Then we have a Seeker Survivor weapon. Ice Pick for a 1 cost. Combat on commit. Fast. As a fast action, during a skill test while fighting or investigating, exhaust Ice Pick to get +1 skill value for this test. Takes up 1 hand slot. Next up we have a Seeker Mystic spell, Divination. 3 cost to play, lore on commit. Uses 4 charges. As an action, investigate. For this investigation, you may use will instead of lore, and you get +1 skill value. If you succeed, spend 1 or 2 charges. Instead of discovering a clue at your location, discover 1 clue at your location for each charge spent. If you succeed by 0, choose and discard a card from your hand. So it's another way to help you investigate and get clues out. Now we'll go ahead and take a look at a Seeker Rogue item called an Eon Chart. 2 cost to play, lore and agility on commit. Uses 3 secrets. During your turn, exhaust Eon Chart and spend 1 secret. Choose and take one of the following actions. Move, evade, or investigate. It's important to remember, though, that it's telling you to take an action. So this would provoke... I think this would provoke attacks of opportunity, actually. So you do need to be careful with that. Next up, we get a Guardian Mystic Weapon, the Brand of Cthulhu. 2 cost to play, combat and commit. Uses 6 charges. As an action, fight. For this attack, you may use will instead of lore, and you get +1 skill value. If you succeed, spend 1 or 2 charges. Instead of its standard damage, this attack deals 1 damage for each charge spent. If you succeed by 0, lose 1 action, and it takes an arcane slot. So another attack spell that you get. Next up, you have a Guardian Rogue event, Snipe. 0 cost to play, combat and agility on commit. During the next fight action you perform this turn using a ranged or firearm asset, treat each bad symbol you reveal as a 0 token. This attack does not provoke attacks of opportunity. So if you're using a lot of guns, you can use this, or using any kind of ranged asset, you can use this to basically tell the symbols to go away. Last up, we have a Seeker Guardian event, On the Trail. 1 cost to play, lore and agility on commit. Choose an enemy at any location other than yours. Either move twice toward that enemy or discover 1 clue at your location, at any empty location between you and the chosen enemy, along the shortest path to reach that enemy. The game is afoot. And I saw it was an insight deck, which might have been relevant to Joe in the channel campaign, but the channel campaign is almost over. So not something we're likely to be able to use. But anyway, that will do it for level 1 multi-class. Now we'll take a look at level 2 multi-class. We're back with the multi-class cards. Let's jump into the level 2 cards. First up, we have a Mystic Survivor weapon. The Enchanted Bow. 3 cost to play, will and agility on commit. Uses 3 charges. As an action, exhaust Enchanted Bow, fight. You must use either will or agility instead of combat and get +1 skill value for this attack. This attack deals +1 damage. As an additional cost to initiate this ability, you may spend 1 charge to have this attack target a non-elite enemy at a connecting location. If you do, ignore aloof and retaliate for this attack. Takes up both hand slots and an arcane slot. Ooh, that's going to be useful. Next up we have another rogue mystic spell, Ethereal Slip. Will and 2 agility on commit, 1 cost to play. Choose a non-elite enemy at any revealed location. Swap places with that enemy. I think the level 0 ability required a connecting location. Then we have Professor William Webb, level 2. Once again, Seeker Survivor ally. 3 cost to play, lore and question mark on commit. Uses 3 secrets. As a reaction, when you successfully investigate, exhaust Professor William Webb and spend 1 secret. Choose an item card in your discard pile and add it to your hand. Instead of discovering a clue at your location, you may discover a clue at a connecting location. 1 health, 3 sanity on soak, and takes the ally slot. Next up, I think we have what's a new Seeker Mystic event, Protecting the Anarike. The Anarike. I'm going to butcher pronunciation on a lot of these. 1 cost to play, lore and agility on commit. Fast. Play after an ally asset at your location is discarded by a card effect or is defeated. Either return that asset to its owner's hand or its owner draws 3 cards. All living things have breath. Be careful they do not curse you with theirs. So I wonder if you would still get a trigger effect when an ally is defeated, or if this replaces that. I'd be curious to see a ruling on that. Next up, we have a Guardian Survivor card, Protective Gear. 4 cost to play, lore or will and agility on commit. Reaction: when you draw a Hazard Treachery, deal 1 and 1 to Protective Gear. Cancel the card's revelation effect. After what you've seen, you intend to sleep in it. 3 health, 3 sanity on soak, and takes the body slot. So that's something else you can use to potentially play around with the encounter deck, but it only works on Hazard Treacheries. Last up, we have a Guardian Rogue Weapon, the old shotgun. 0 cost to play, combat on commit. Uses 0 ammo. While playing an event, treat old shotgun's uses value as 2. Action: spend 1 ammo, fight. You get +3 combat for this attack. Instead of its standard damage, this attack's damage is equal to the amount you succeed by, or fail by if you fail and would damage another investigator, to a minimum of 1 to a maximum of 3, and takes both hand slots. Now, at first glance, I don't like this card, but I could potentially see it being, I don't know. It seems like you need ways to put more ammo on it before you can use it. But anyway, that will do it for the level 2 cards. Now let's take a look at the level 3 cards. Here we are with the level 3 multi-class cards, and we have our cards we start to have cards that have 3 classes on them. So first up, we'll take a look at Survivor Seeker Mystic Talent. Sleuth. 3 cost to play, 2 lore on commit. Uses 2 resources. Replenish these resources at the end of the start of each round. Resources on Sleuth may be spent to pay for Charm, Tactic, or Tome cards. As a fast action, during a skill test on a Charm, Tactic, or Tome, spend 1 resource from Sleuth. You get +1 skill value for this test. So just something that can help out with skill tests on Charm, Tactic, or Totem cards. Next up, we have a Guardian Survivor Rogue card in Bruiser, which is the same thing for armor, firearm, and melee cards as Sleuth. Then we continue in that vein with Seeker Survivor Rogue cards, the Survivor Seeker Rogue card in Crafty. Another 3 cost to play. This time you get 2 agility on commit. And this one helps out Insight, Tool, or Trick cards. And then same thing on the asset, on the spend a resource from it. Last up in that vein, we have Antiquary, which is Seeker Rogue Mystic, and helps out with Favor, Relic, and Ritual tests. Oh, looks like we have one more, actually. This one is Survivor Mystic Guardian Prophetic. This one helps out with Fortune, Spell, and Spirit cards. So that's probably something Mystics will look hard at. But anyway. Next up, we come to a Survivor Rogue event, an Unscrupulous Loan. 0 cost to play. And I forgot to mention on Crafty gives you 2 agility, Antiquary gives you a question mark on commit, and Prophetic gives you 2 will. Now we come back to Unscrupulous Loan. 0 cost to play, nothing on commit. Limit 1 per investigator, cannot leave play. Okay, after you play Unscrupulous Loan, gain 10 resources. Then forced. When the game ends or you're eliminated, if you have fewer than 10 resources in your resource pool, exile Unscrupulous Loan. So it would cost you another 3 resources to buy it back. As we recall, exile means you remove it from the game, but you have to rebuy it for the deck for the next scenario. So next up, we'll take a look at a Survivor Seeker upgraded item, Ice Pick level 3. 1 cost to play, lore, and combat on commit. Fast. As a fast action, during a skill test while fighting or investigating, exhaust Ice Pick. You get +1 skill value for this test. If you succeed, you may discard Ice Pick to have this attack deal +1 damage if you're fighting, or discover 1 additional clue at your location if you're investigating. For a 3 experience, that actually doesn't seem all that good, really, at first glance. Maybe it'll wow me, but my initial impression is that's probably going to end up being a pass. Next up, we have another new ally for Seeker and Rogue, and Jean Beauregard, Intrepid Explorer. 5 cost to play, lore and agility on commit. You get +1 and 1 of the aforementioned stats. Then as a reaction, during your turn, after you move to a location, exhaust Jean Beauregard. Move a clue to or a non-elite enemy from a connecting location to your location, or vice versa. 2 and 2 on soak, and takes the ally slot. Seems like that could be useful if you need to get something away from you. And next up, we have Guardian Mystic ally in Nikosi Mabati, Enigmatic Warlock. 4 cost to play, 2 will on commit. Reaction, after he enters play, name a non-Elder Sign cast token with a symbol. Until this card leaves play, the named symbol is your sigil. When an investigator at your location reveals a cultist, rune, or elder thing symbol, exhaust Nikosi Mabati, search the chaos bag for your sigil and reveal it instead, returning the other token to the chaos bag. Another 2 and 2 on soak, and takes the ally slot. So something else you can use to manipulate the chaos bag. Then last up, we have an upgraded Seeker Guardian event in On the Trail. 1 cost to play, 2 agility, or 2 lore, combat, and an agility on commit. Choose an enemy at any location other than yours. Move twice toward that enemy. Discover 1 clue at each location you entered by this effect. That actually seems like it could be really good. Help you cheat more clues into the clue pool. But anyway, that will do it for Multiclass Level 3. Now let's take a look at Multiclass Level 4. Multiclass Level 4 up next, and it looks like we don't have any more of these triple class cards. So let's just jump right in. We'll start off with an upgraded Mystic Survivor spell in Earthly Serenity. 4 experience to put in the deck, 2 cost to play, 2 will on commit, uses 6 charges. As an action, test will 0. For each point you fail by, or succeed by, you may spend 1 charge to heal 1 damage or 1 horror from an investigator at your location. But if you succeed by 0, lose 2 resources. So it's basically just an upgraded Earthly Serenity. Next up, we'll take a look at what I think is a new Survivor Rogue item, Precious Memento from a Former Life. 3 cost to play, 2 question marks on commit. Limit 1 Precious Memento from a Former Life per deck. As a reaction, after you fail a skill test by 2 or more, exhaust Precious Memento to heal 1 damage from it. Then after you succeed at a skill test by 2 or more, exhaust it to heal a horror from it. 3 and 3 on soak, and it takes the accessory slot. So I bet Carolyn could take us, actually, again, with the heal horror clause on it. Seems like it would be really good for her too, actually. But anyway, next up we'll take a look at an upgraded Rogue Mystic spell in Blur. 2 cost to play, lore and agility on commit, uses 4 charges. As an action, if Blur has charges remaining, evade. For this evasion attempt, you may use will instead of agility, and you get +2 skill value. If you succeed, spend 1 or 2 charges, and you may take that many additional actions this turn. If you succeed by 0, take 2 damage. So now Mystic gets to start gaining actions, but the damage potential is very real. Next up, we'll take a look at an upgraded Seeker Mystic spell in Divination. 3 cost to play, lore and will on commit. Uses 6 charges. As an action, investigate. For this investigation, you may use will instead of lore, and you get +2 skill value. If you succeed, spend 1, 2, or 3 charges. Instead of discovering a clue at your location, discover 1 clue at your location for each charge spent. If you succeed by 0, choose and discard 2 cards from your hand. And it takes up the arcane slot, which I think everything that we've been looking at so far. Nope, accessory. Blur also took an arcane slot. So we're definitely getting a lot of spells, but stuff we need to be careful with. Next up, we have an upgraded Seeker Rogue spell in Eon Chart. 2 cost to play, lore, agility, and question mark on commit. Uses 3 secrets. As a fast action, during your turn, exhaust Eon Chart and spend 1 secret. Choose and take 2 of the following actions in any order. Move, evade, or investigate. And it takes the ally slot. So that'll help you jumpstart getting moving and investigating, probably, unless there's something really dangerous you need to evade. Next up, we have an upgraded Survivor's Guardian weapon in Sledgehammer. 3 cost to play, 3 combat on commit. As an action, fight. You get +1 combat and deal +1 damage for this attack. Whoa! 3 actions to fight. You get +5 combat and deal +5 damage for this attack. Jeez. 25 pounds of Steel Vengeance. So yeah, that's something you can use to really put a hurting on the enemy, but that's basically your entire turn. Though, if you have something you really need to kill, you probably are going to be spending your entire turn on that anyway, but I don't know, that just doesn't seem that good to me. Anyway, next up we have an upgraded Guardian Mystic spell in Brand of Cthulhu. 2 cost to play, will, and combat on commit. Uses 9 charges. Fight. For this attack, you may use will instead of combat, and you get +2 skill value. If you succeed, spend 1, 2, or 3 charges. Instead of its standard damage, this attack deals 1 damage for each charge spent. If you succeed by 0, lose 2 actions, and takes the arcane slot. So definitely something you need to be very careful of with losing actions. But anyway, last up we have a new Guardian Rogue item tool in Quick Draw Holster. 4 cost to play, combat, and 2 agility on commit. As an action, choose a firearm asset taking up only 1 hand slot in your play area, attach it to Quick Draw Holster, or switch it with the attached asset. The attached asset takes up no hand slots, limit 1 attached hand asset. As a fast action, exhaust Quick Draw Holder, perform a fight action on the attached asset without paying its action cost, and takes the body slot. Oh my, so if you attach something powerful to this, it basically just becomes a free fight action. That could be very handy, but for the 4 experience cost is pretty steep to get to that. But anyway, that will do it for Multiclass Level 4. Last up, we'll take a look at Multiclass Level 5. Last up, we have Multiclass Level 5, and we only have 2 cards to go through for this. They're both new cards from the looks of it, too. First up, we'll lead off with a Guardian Mystic weapon in Cyclopean Hammer. 5 cost to play, 2 will, 2 combat on commit. As an action, fight. Add your will value to your skill value for this attack. You deal +1 damage for this attack. If you succeed and an enemy is non-elite, you may move it one location away from you. If you succeed by 3 or more, you instead deal +2 damage and may move that enemy up to 2 locations away from you. And it takes 2 hand slots. Oh my, I could have used this. I probably could have used this for Agnes in Return to the Circle Undone when I did that as the summer campaign. But alas, it wasn't in the game obviously yet. Last up, we have a Seeker Guardian ally in Michael Lay, Experienced Hunter. 4 cost to play, lore, combat, and a question mark on commit. You get +1 lore and +1 combat. After you successfully investigate, place 1 resource from the token pool on Michael Lay as evidence, to a maximum of 3 evidence. As a fast action, when you initiate an attack, exhaust Michael Lay and spend 1 evidence. You deal +1 damage for this attack, 3 and 3 on soak. That could be very handy with with either fighters or investigators. But anyway, that will do it for the multi-class cards. That will do it for everything that came in Edge of the Earth. Now we'll move back up top to wrap this video up. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is everything that came in the Edge of the Earth Investigator Expansion. So that will do it for this unboxing video. Sunday, we'll wrap the fall campaign as we return to the Devourer below. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.